Let's get started. So welcome to the July edition of the Patch Tuesday Support Group, a safe place to come and cry into your coffee or beer or tea or water, as is the case with Jake and Kerry. We are excited to waste yet another perfectly good hour of your life talking about patching. You'll notice that today we're joined by Kerry and not Jordan, who is out doing important things, I'm sure. So Kerry's going to bring the usual news of CVE details and CVE bingo and show us some beautiful charts that you're going to ask us where you could download them. We're going to tell you trying the website, but it's kind of broken right now. So, par for the course. In a stunning reversal of our normal, we're actually going to let Jake talk and show things. So at the very end, Jake's going to demo some of our recently released Mac OS feature, and I'm going to sort of narrate over top of it, sort of. So that's the plan for this next hour. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kerry to kick it off.
Thanks. I'm playing de facto Jordan today, so never be as cool as he is.
The worst role to play ever.
De facto Jordan. Okay, so let me share out my screen here. Kind of see the updates for this month. So Patch Tuesday, kind of a big one this month. We have about 121 unique updates of addressed in a total of about 45 monthly KBs. 21 are classified as critical and 23 are classified as important. And for the Microsoft patches, 6 of these are denial of service. We have 53 elevation of privilege, which is a lot. 19 information disclosure, 42 remote code execution, 8 security feature bypass flaws, 4 spoofing, and 1 tampering. So there were also 10 other kind of Microsoft flaws that were addressed during the Patch Tuesday release. They affect Visual Studio, AMD, and the Edge browser. So that's kind of for the Microsoft side. We'll talk about a few CVEs here. So the first CVE is CVE 2025-49719. And that one is the flaw that Microsoft has acknowledged that is publicly known. It's rated as high severity per the CVSS rating score. And it's described as an information disclosure in Microsoft SQL Server. It's due to an improper input validation bug, and Microsoft itself has said, like, hey, this is exploitation of this flaw is less likely, but anyone using the SQL Server should kind of update to the latest version, which includes the necessary kind of driver fixes, unless you're building your own apps and using software from another vendor that uses SQL Server. Then you'll need to update Microsoft OLE DB driver for SQL Server version 18 or 19, just to make sure you're ensuring compatibility before updating. Next one, kind of important to mention here, is CVE 2025-47981. It's also a critical severity vulnerability. It's a remote code execution flaw in Windows Spinego extended negotiation security mech. So due to a buffer overflow bug, basically threat actor can get in there and trigger it by sending a malicious message to a vulnerable system. Affects Windows 10 version 1607 and above, because the GPO is enabled by default on these operating systems. So Microsoft rated it as highly exploitable, which typically means it's going to become a target for threat actors. So just make sure that you're testing and deploying patches for that one rather quickly. And finally, we have CVE 2025-49717. And that is a critical severity remote code execution flaw. It's due to a buffer overflow vulnerability, and it can be triggered by an authenticated attacker running a malicious query against vulnerable SQL servers, and basically allows them to escape the context of the server and execute code on the underlying host. So those are 3 to look out for this month as you're doing your patching. And then here in Patch My PC world, we have our updates for this month as well. Let me share on my screen here. So for this month, we have 1,690 total unique updates. That addressed about 43 unique vulnerabilities across about 71 products, or as Jordan likes to call, vulnerability depth, which I think has had some debate between Jordan and Brian last time I checked on if that's actually real or just a made up number that Jordan gets to put in there for funsies.
Every time he explains it, I reject his explanation.
We always usually ask him to re-explain it too, because who remembers, right?
Yeah.
Tell me again. What's going on?
naming is hard. What can we say?
Right. Naming is difficult. So in browser wars here, Microsoft Edge actually won out this month with about 18 updates. Then we have Google Chrome coming in at 15, Firefox with 14, and Opera with 8. And there's nothing huge in here. You can kind of see for us, it was mostly, for the products we have in here, and you can go on our website and kind of scroll through and see any other updates. So that is it for updates on my end, and I'll pass it over to Brian.
Okay, so let's talk about all the fun that's happened in the last month. There's actually a crazy amount of patching news, like stuff that you should probably know about or have figured out already. If you didn't, if you're using ConfigMgr or WSUS, you probably had a bunch of errors yesterday. Here, there was, it took a couple hours, but Microsoft acknowledged that in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, which I hate because it's paywalled. But they did acknowledge that they released a couple of bad updates with some revisions with some bad metadata. And basically what happened, that caused WSUS syncs to fail, which caused WSUS to then go ahead and try and reinitiate that sync, which then basically took down the back end for WSUS itself. So even if you didn't have that issue and you weren't what's the right word? You weren't seeking those particular updates, which were part of the Windows 11 product, so you probably were. Even if you weren't, you were impacted. So I saw a lot of this happen. They have fixed it. So in theory, if you were failing to sync yesterday, go ahead and try it again. And if you're still failing, I'd be interested to hear that. Also, last month, they kind of screwed up the release. So just know, I mean, it's fixed now, but just in case last month, June, you're like, wait a minute, why wasn't I getting these updates? There was a known issue where, again, they kind of screwed up the release of the updates. I don't know. And they basically didn't come out to the 20th. So they're supposed to come out, I think, on the 12th or the 12th or the 10th. And they screwed up those releases and they didn't get out in time. Moving along, for Windows 11, this isn't the right one. Okay. I'm going to move along here. This month's CUs include and there's been this long-running Kerberos enforcement thing. July CUs enable that by default. So you can disable it if you want, but this month, all of your devices are going to have this additional Kerberos hardening enabled. And so what you want to go look for is ID 45 or 25 in the event log and see if you have any failures and go ahead and address that. So just be aware if you see some crazy off failures, I would dig into it for that reason. Also, if you are using straight Windows updates, so Windows Update for Business or Intune, they pushed out a WinRAR update. Now they only pushed it to Windows Update. You can see they didn't push up to the active catalog. They pushed it to WSUS and therefore ConfigMgr. It had a known issue in it where it would throw an error to install. And then on the second time, if we would go try and reinstall itself, it would say, oh no, I'm installed. So that was a known issue. It's a bit of a false positive. If you remember a couple of years ago, we went through this whole rigmarole of trying to update WinRAR, and then it was failing because there wasn't enough space. all of that stuff you can see here may not be offered to those devices. But again, this is only going to apply if you're using basically Intune or just group policy to direct updates to Windows Update directly. If you're using ConfigMgr or WSUS, you won't see these updates. You can't even download these updates to apply them. The other thing that has come up is that they are warning that they are going to, in the next year, they're going to expire the Windows Secure Boot certificates. So if you are, there's a whole other blog I have on here. There's, in theory, nothing you need to do. In theory, it should just all get fixed. But I was already hearing this month of people saying, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm having some server Defender was throwing some server Defender was throwing alerts about code integrity and this secure boot certificate expiration and updates was sort of the expected cause. That's anecdotal. I wouldn't trust that. But if you see some of those alerts this morning or in the coming days, dig into those and see if that's what's going on there. This July CU for Windows 11 24H2 includes a bunch of new features. And I say that kind of in air quotes, like, you know, the icons on the taskbar will dynamically resize. There's some improvement to the narration feature if you use that. If you have Copilot plus PCs, they're adding the ability to sort of basically automatically paste some image and text into Copilot. I don't really grasp the concept of why that's a huge feature. The big thing you might notice is that they're adding something called Windows Backup. They're not enabling that globally, it doesn't sound like, but Windows Backup, basically in its intent is to help you migrate from one PC to another. Now, what's unique here is here we have the KB article for the July CUs, and it has its own variable video, which is sort of concerning to me just in principle. This should be kind of dry information about here's what's added and improved and here's the quality updates and security stuff we fixed, but they have a whole video to tell you here's all the stuff we're enabling. For those of you listening who are like, can I disable these things? I haven't figured out that you can. Microsoft has been talking about this for a long time of, hey, we're going to deliver features via cumulative updates, and we as enterprises have said that's interesting, but I'd like to block those. And Microsoft said sure, and then they just kind of didn't. So I really don't know how this lands, and so I would encourage you to I would encourage you to watch this video, look for those features, decide if any of that is concerning to you, and you need to get ahead of it. The links should all be in resources, by the way. So if you go to the resources tab,
I think we have a wrong link for this one
there.
specifically, Brian. I'm going to see if Corey can't get it updated.
Okay, this is just, I mean, here, I'll throw it in there. This is just the KB article for, I just got to make sure I'm sending it to everyone. Yeah, there you go. Somebody got it. Okay. So moving along, that's all patching news, a lot to talk about there. Just in some general security news, we've talked about this for the last couple of years. North Korea is actively, what's the right word? Interviewing for jobs, getting jobs. And the Justice Department has cracked down and found a bunch of people. And what happens is there's people in the US who basically take money to receive laptops from unknowing employers. And they basically have laptop farms in their apartments around the U.S. And so here you can go read that the DOJ finally cracked on another group of that stuff. So that's still happening. Speaking of North Korea, this is a fun one to read. Basically, they're using deepfakes for some of the more popular companies, and they're doing deepfakes of multiple C-suite people. And then asking you to join a call and then telling you, oh, your mic is broken, blah, 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 go fix this. Which, I don't know, it feels like that would be kind of weird and that you would notice this. But that's, I don't. If you get called into a meeting with your entire C-suite and they tell you to download something, maybe don't do that. Speaking of North Korea, this is the third and final one. Another interesting social hack is, okay, you're interviewing for a job and they're going to give you a coding challenge and they're going to tell you, go ahead and download this template, and that template installs all sorts of awful things on your device. So again, I don't do that. None of you are probably interviewing for software development jobs, but if you are, watch out, I guess. I don't know, it's just interesting to me. If you ever want kind of this one I include because it's a really interesting and deep point by point explanation of how an attack happens. So this is if you have RDP open to the internet, this is nothing here is particularly novel. They just sprayed the RDP host with password attacks, and they were just trying random passwords until one worked, and eventually it did. And so this is just a beautiful kind of detail, blow by blow of here's how this kind of thing happens. So if that ever interests you, that's a good read. Printers. It feels like printers were a mistake. Just on the whole, printing to paper, we strayed from God's light and should have never done.
Bring back the printing press,
and
right?
Apparently, brother, in it.
Bring back the printing press. Yeah.
The printing press. Yeah. Movable type. I agree. So a bunch of manufacturers, not just Brother, they long have had almost all of your printers have some sort of web-based interface these days. Even my crappy little Brother that sits over here that's probably vulnerable to the exact same thing, and they have a default password. And so they thought, oh, we'll be smart and we'll create randomized passwords for each device. But the seed was the seed for that password randomization was the serial number of it, and that serial number you could actually kind of query in plain text via the website. So people basically reverse engineered the default passwords, and so even though you might have a randomized default password, it's easy to reverse engineer, and people are doing that to then, of course, hacksaw your printer and do all sorts of fun things. So if you have a Brother printer or any of the other ones listed here, go ahead and change your default password on your printer's management page.
You should probably do that by default anyway.
Here we are in the year of our Lord.
Yeah,
I know you should. I realize. Tell your mother. Tell your mother and grandmother. Yeah, but if you see it, it's a random set of digits. You're like, oh, well, that's better than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Or admin,
yeah. Admin. Like, oh, that's right. Like, it's like, oh, that seems reasonable. That's randomized, and they probably even tell you it's randomized, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, it's not randomized enough. So moving along, if you are if you order things from Anker Micro, you might have noticed that earlier, just a couple of days ago, you were unable to load and their whole sites were down. Yep. Surprise, surprise. They got hacksawed by something called SafePay. And I don't have all the details, but if you want to know why that was down and they are restoring their services, that is the reason. If you're using WinRAR, we talked about a similar vulnerability, which is basically when you extract it, you can do some shenanigans with the path to extraction. In this scenario, you can extract if you carefully create the path to extract to, we'd actually trick WinRAR to put it basically anywhere on the device. So you could put it in, Win System 32. There's no elevation here, so you need to be in Min to do so when you extract that. But you could put it in certain places that might auto run some stuff. So anyways, go ahead and update WinRAR if you are using that in your organization. I don't know if this is interesting or not, but I call it out. It was kind of leaked that the US House of whatever has sort of sending a memo around saying don't use WhatsApp. They saying basically we don't know what app security is. Again, I don't know that this is really a news item per se. WhatsApp, of course, says no, we are secure and all that jazz. But it's interesting to see that play out in the world. If you are using BeyondTrust remote support or remote backup, I think it was, there was this super interesting injection. So basically, they have templates for chat. So the chat feature of BeyondTrust remote support would allow you to basically run arbitrary code on the server itself. And this was, I believe, oh no, that's the next one. So that allows it to basically be, it's a remote RCE with elevation, because you're basically going to run it in the server context, just based on a chat feature. So go ahead and take a look at that. Make sure that you're updated, especially if you're running that on-prem, although I don't even know that that's an option. This one I do know, if you're using Veem at all to do your backup or any of your replication stuff, there was a really bad one here. I mean, by their own admission, I think it's a 9.9. That is 9.9 out of 10. They say that, but that it surprised me a little bit, because basically what they're just saying is anyone who's authenticated domain user can basically do remote code execution on your backup server. So that is bad, but you do need to have some level of authentication. And Veem would tell you, well, you shouldn't. They in their best practices, they tell you don't join this to your normal domain, which seems kind of crazy. Most people, of course, just ignore that. So anyways, if you're running Veem, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you update it if you're running that on-prem. Lastly, in terms of, this is, I didn't know where to slot this in our general, in our organization of things. Is this security news? Is it update news? If you are a Notepad++ user, as I am, I think I currently have, and I will go check, 250 plus tabs open.
You got to clean that up sometime, Brian.
No, sir. I'm going for the high score here. If you are a Notepad++ user, notice that they have historically had a code signing certificate that they use, but it's been assigned to the actual author of Notepad++. And for reasons that I don't understand and actually agree with, he doesn't want it in his name. He wants it in Notepad++ as an organization. That's actually really hard to do, to get a code signing certificate for an organization. You just have to prove that you've been around for a few years and you have offices and you have to be in Duns and Bradstreet. Anyways, that's not going to happen for him. So he just decided, I'm going to go and create a self-signed certificate, and I will use that for code signing Notepad++. So if you have anything like WDAC or anything else that is approving these kinds of things, this cert is not going to be trusted by any of your root CAs. So, even here, he basically walks through, like, if you want to trust this thing, you're going to have to go and install this cert and all this jazz. I don't know that that's going to be a problem for any of you. I'm just throwing out there, if you're using that, the next time you do an update to 8.83, go ahead and take an extra careful look at how that update goes and see if any of your antivirus stuff starts, or WDAC starts flagging those things. This is kind of fun. We've talked a little bit. We're getting the industry news now. This is really it. VMware was bought out by Broadcom. Broadcom has basically been extorting. Sorry, I shouldn't say extort. Broadcom has been significantly increasing the cost of support. And so the Dutch government said, well, okay, we need to extend for 1 year. And they said, that's great, but you're going to have to pay 400 times or 4 times the amount you previously did. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. And they gave them a 1 year extension. And then the Dutch government said, okay, we need another extension because we're going to get off VMware. And Broadcom just said, no, you're going to have to buy our subscription software to continue using this. And a judge went to the court, and the judge says, no, you're going to have to extend your existing support contract at a reasonable rate. Now, who knows what that means? But this is interesting because it's the first time I've seen a court somewhere basically say, yes, that is absolutely batshit crazy. No, you can't do that. You need to continue to support them. Extend a support agreement, not for free, but like you have to extend your existing licensing model to help them essentially get off of VMware stuff, which is crazy. Moving along into just more Windows stuff, Microsoft stuff. I'm sure you've heard the next version of Windows 11 25H2 is on the cusp. And so here's, of course, your helpful blog that was posted late last month to talk about, hey, here's what's included in this version. Here's how you get there. Short term is if you are on Windows 11 24H2, it's going to be an enablement package. So it'll be basically flip and submit. It's going to be super easy. If you're anything older than that, it's going to take a full feature update or in-place upgrade, whatever you want to do. So just an FYI there. You may remember the whole CrowdStrike incident, and Microsoft, immediately went and talked about doing a lot of things. And here's an update on that. You can read this whole blog. The real key to this is one of the things that came out immediately when the CrowdStrike thing happened was, wait a minute, why is CrowdStrike operating in the kernel, which allows it to, which means its code is part of the critical path for booting, which it failed. And a lot of people said, well, wait a minute, Apple doesn't work this way. Years ago, Apple kicked even antivirus software out of the kernel, and this is basically what Microsoft is saying they are going to do as well. They are going to basically they are going to slowly figure out how to offer user space APIs for security vendors to use instead of running in the kernel. So that's good news, but probably a long play. We're not going to see that in the next month or two, but over the coming years, hopefully we'll see that that take fruition, and we won't see a repeat of what we saw with CrowdStrike. It'll happen some other fun new way that nobody is prepared for, but that specific thing should never hopefully happen again. Yes. Oh, yes, the blue screen. Exactly. We will never have a blue screen of death, only because it's going to be black. Yep. So if you are using the Microsoft Intune connector for Active Directory, this is your last notice. We've been talking about this each month. They have released a new version, the version that is and specifically uses a managed service account instead of using a domain account or whatever you're using before. And the new connector stopped working in theory last month. So if you did not prepare for that, sorry. If you haven't heard that it stopped working, and maybe they give you a few days of grace time, but you need to go fix that probably today or at least this week. I had a better link for this, I thought. But one of the interesting things that's coming out in the release of Windows 10, or no, Windows 11, I should say. I think this is in 24H2. It's in Insiders right now. But for almost since Windows 10 was released, there's been community solutions for how do I get rid of all of this crap out of
Bring back Candy
Windows 10.
Crush.
So if I'm installing Candy Crush was the most egregious, but when I'm installing a server, why is it that I have Xbox gaming app, right? These kinds of things. Why is this in a enterprise SKU? So there is going to be a native policy that's in group policy or CSP that is coming up. Again, right now, as I understand it, this is only an insider, so don't expect to get this right now. Certainly, probably never going to work for Windows 10. Whether it's backported to Windows 11 24H2, maybe somebody smarter can confirm. But for sure, the next version of Windows 11 will get this, which is great, right? Exactly. The peasants rejoice. I alluded to this one earlier. This is a long-term notice, right? So Microsoft is going to expire the current secure boot certificates, and it's going to take the next year to make sure that we roll out the new ones. Now, I immediately go into, okay, well, what do I need to do? And in theory, it's nothing. And this confuses me and concerns me. They're basically saying there is no update. There's no KB that I point you to and say, well, you install this and you'll have the new certs. They're basically telling you if you have IT managed systems, all you have to do is make sure that they're sending diagnostic data. And if they are, they will get magically updated. Right, like this seems like not how you roll out updates to something critical like booting device. So again, it's important that you do this, right? And yet it seems like there's no real control or even way of knowing, did it get updated? And maybe if we, that will come out, or maybe there's some resources here I'm just not clear on. But this is something to be aware of. In the next year, we will follow this and see what happens. Oh, there you go. That's where that link went to. And that's where that link went to. Moving along, if you are using the Global Secure Access Client, this is some sort of non-VPN kind of VPN thing. This now supports ARM. So if you are using the new Copilot for Copilot Plus PCs that are ARM-based, go ahead. You can now use this. You can use this. Something I've never seen before. I've been talking for the last years about Intune and driver, and it's really Windows Update for Business Deployment Service. And I always talk about the fact that what we always kind of wanted to use, sort of, was this thing that the Windows Update catalog had this, something like 2+ billion drivers in it, and I always just wanted to use that catalog to automatically figure out what the right set of drivers is. Well, apparently that's going to, there's drivers back to, in theory, like Windows 95 days. They just keep adding them. And they're finally realizing that maybe that doesn't make sense. And so Microsoft, there's nothing for you to take action here, but just be aware, especially if you're using any Intune's driver management features, that basically what they're just saying is we're going to go clean up some older drivers, very specifically, very old drivers that are superseded and have newer versions. We're going to go expire those in the catalog. And if any of the OEMs that submitted those say for some reason, oh, no, we really need them, they're going to give them, I forget it, 6 months or a year to go and say, yeah, no, we don't want you to get rid of these. But anyways, that's going to get cleaned up. Useful to know if you're using any of those features. If you're using any of the Graph API stuff, especially just know that there was a slight change here. If you're using any of that, if you're using any of the Graph API to automate any of the scripting stuff, so that shell script, health script, client script, custom attributes, and the just the general device management scripts, I guess, that there's a change to the API, and you want to go ahead and read that and change your code. Probably less interesting to this group, but Microsoft has talked about their GitHub Copilot stuff, extension for VS Code, and that is going to be open source. They actually went and did that now. So if that interests you at all, you can go ahead and find that. This made a lot of, moving on to Intune stuff now, this made a lot of kerfuffle. A lot of blogs are written basically saying, oh, there was a new baseline. And if you create a new baseline, it was forgetting or not using your customizations. And a lot of people wrote a lot of blogs about this, and people sort of had kind of a mini freak out. And Microsoft even itself came out and said that's a known issue, blah, 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 right? Customization not safe. But then they went and updated it later to be like, oh, but that's actually technically by design. And so you can read this if you're confused. This has been updated. It is by design, generally speaking, that if you create a new baseline, you're not replacing the old baseline. You're simply adding a second one. And if you deploy it to the same device, there is a mechanism within Intune or at the endpoint to basically figure out which setting to use, and it leans towards the more secure. By default, it's going to pick what it thinks is the more secure option. But anyways, if you were releasing a new baseline, this is worth reading to make sure that you do so correctly, and any customizations you want to add are there. What's new in Intune? Not a whole lot. If you're using the Intune suite for the enterprise app management, you can now flag those apps as blocking in the ESP section of Autopilot or Autopilot. Yep, I got it right. And there's this somewhat vague allusion to there's some new reporting system for improved performance and data accuracy. I looked to see if Rudy had any kind of blog on that. He did not. But that's great. That's great news to hear that in theory reporting might be better. The very last thing here, and this was thanks to I forget who your name was, called this out. A new CVE was released just a couple of days ago for Configuration Manager, talking about a remote code execution vulnerability. While I was on mute, I took a look, and the update it posts to is actually the latest one. So I didn't have a lot of time to dig into this. There was a KB release for 2503, which was pretty quickly after it was released, or was it for its previous release, which had to do with another SQL injection attack, which is exactly what this one sounds like. And basically, if I'm reading this right, they're just saying, yes, there is a vulnerability in older versions of Config Manager that allowed you to do a SQL injection. Apparently, it's different than the last one they fixed. But again, if I'm reading this correctly, if you're using the latest version with the latest KB applied, you should be secure. So, okay, with that, I am done. And I'm going to hand it over to Jake. Jake is going to talk about something that we have recently released to private preview, which is Patch by Mac.
You mean public?
Public. What did I say? Did I say private?
You said private.
Yeah, you said private. That's okay.
Dang it.
It's private, but we're going to talk about it on air to 200 plus people. It's fine.
This is public preview, which means any Patch My PC customer using Patch My PC Cloud can go enable this in their environment. And I think you're going to show us where
I'm going to drop the link in the chat here on how to actually go enable this if you want to. If you don't see it for whatever reason, please reach out to support. We'll get you sorted. But yeah, popping over to the portal, the very first thing you'll probably notice is there's a Windows symbol here, and then there's a little Apple icon. So Mac support, yeah, Brian? I know this is kind of one of your babies,
Absolutely.
yeah?
It was something I pushed for and helped along slightly. I can't take much credit for it, though.
I gotcha. Well, we can filter right away just to see like the Mac side of things. Again, this is, public preview, so it's kind of limited, yeah, on the number of apps. But there's a good amount here, yeah.
Yeah, I think is there more than 50? I think the number I saw was, I don't know, does it show how many are shown here?
I don't see a count anywhere.
I know when we went
right
when we went live, I know that there was 50, and I know Andrew's team has been working to add a bunch more. The questions are we using auto package? No, we're not using auto package. There's active discussion there. If you're not familiar, auto package is kind of like a community source for scripts to download and publish Mac OS apps. The problem with the auto package is that one of its power is that it will fix problems, but then it's basically recreating the installer. It's basically kind of like a script for repackaging, and that's kind of a violation of one of our principles, that we don't host the content. We don't modify the content. So when you deploy something with Patch My PC, you are downloading it from the vendor. You are downloading and deploying the vendor's binaries. And there's no man in the middle. It's not us. It's not somebody else. And we check the hash of that to make sure that it is the exact same file that we thought it was. And auto package basically blows that away. It means we would have to we'd have to sign all of these third-party apps with our own code, or not sign them at all. Then you just have unsigned apps running in your environment. And so, yeah, it's active discussion, because auto package would make our lives easier, and it does fix some really bad. There's some apps that are just undeployable in Intune, Mac apps very specifically. Like, they're just literally zip files. So what do you do with that? And yes, it is
script installers, but obviously that's not something we can really help out too much with.
Yeah, we're not really interested in going down that road. The other question was Jamp versus Intune. Right now is for Intune only. I'm not against adding Jamp, but when I first started on this, the vote count was 800 plus for Intune and about 100 or just a little under for Jamp. And so I'm not against Jamp. I know a lot of people use Jamp. A lot of orgs that have significant investment in Mac OS and iOS and iPad OS and all the other starred OSs. I know that they tend to invest in Jamp, so I'm not against it. But what we really just need to see, really, I'll just tell you internally, we just need to see people are actually interested in this and are actually going to use it. Are people actually going to deploy macOS apps? I will, Jake is going to do a demo here in a hot second. One of the things I will warn you is that unlike Windows apps, where we can add additional files, which means we can create a wrapper, which we call script runner, and where we have custom detection methods, but you don't get any of that with Mac. So Mac is just one of two. You get one file, either a DMG or a PKG, and you don't have any custom detection methods. So basically, I think two things. You basically have the ID of the app and the version. That's it. That's all you get. Nothing more, nothing less. So that severely limits us in what we can do. And one of the big things that it is missing, and we don't currently have, like, I don't even know how we solve this, is how do you update apps that are deployed as available? In the Windows side, we create some custom detection methods, and you can safely deploy your apps to to all devices or all users, and we will figure out whether it needs to update based on whether an older version of the app's installed. We cannot do that for macOS based in Intune in the current implementation. So that's a major limitation that we are aware of, would love to solve. If anybody has a harebrained idea of how to solve that, that isn't, I mean, like this is where Auto Packager maybe comes into play, but we're, like I said, we're sort of fundamentally not a fan of that, of
script installers
being the
is
band in the
another
middle.
option, but
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so go ahead. Sorry, Jake. As I
I was going to say,
scrapping
like
all over your
what
demo.
you alluded to there too, Brian, answers another question in the chat, which was around like custom apps. You know, at the end of the day, all we're really doing is putting that package or DMG file in Intune for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a huge value add in like being able to do that from our portal. I can think of maybe like from an RBAC perspective, like maybe you have someone that you want to like package an app and only give them access to Patch My PC portal and not Intune it directly. But beyond that, I don't see a huge value add. I could be convinced otherwise though.
Yeah, there's three big things, the three big asks that are on the ideas page. That is, one is Jamf. So we already talked about Jamf. Another one is custom apps, which is what we're talking about here. And that one we've heard, and yeah, I agree with you, Jake. There's not a ton of value we can add, but I'm also sensitive to
while there
isn't,
I should rephrase that. While I don't see a huge value add, I think it's something that we should include for sure.
Yeah, right. Like it's just like it's a single, like I do all my apps in here. Why would I go to one other thing, another place? So
yeah,
like I'm sensitive to that argument, but I'm just warning you, like we're basically just have to recreate the Intune wheel for deployment, which is fine. It's just why we didn't do it first. I think the most value for the buck here is like, hey, we're going to actually give you the public apps. The last thing is for Publisher. So currently Publisher does not support macOS apps. So if that's, and I know a lot of our customers are still using Publisher. And so currently that is not supported, but there's an idea of go ahead and vote it up. So why don't you go ahead and
pointed
show
out in the chat for custom apps if you need to pay for like an Apple developer program. So like David, what we're talking about is like we would just give you a portal where you would upload your own DMG or package file. Yeah, if you were going to like down the route of like fully creating custom ones, yeah, you would have to go with the Apple developer program. If I recall correctly, it's like $99 a year or something like that. Like it's not, it's arguably a drop in a bucket. But it's still something to look at. I know Brian had alluded to like a demo here too. There's not really a whole lot to show aside from the fact that like now if you go to an app that has both of those icons for Windows and Mac OS, or you specifically filter for Mac OS apps, you'll now have the option to deploy a Mac OS app. I actually already have this, not 1Password here specifically, but you'll notice like, hey, display name 1Password defaulted English. You don't really get a whole lot of options as far as like the general information goes. It does look like we've got the pre and post scripts here, Brian.
Right. So just a comment on that, right? So just go add some pre or post script. What we're trying to do is exactly. So you notice at the bottom there, right? There's a warning like adding a script will disable uninstall assigned to this deployment. When you deploy apps in when you deploy Mac OS apps in Intune, it's a really crazy matrix of capabilities, depending on what kind of installer it is, whether it's a DMG or a PKG. And then if you do it as a line of business or a not line of business, and we've tried our best to abstract that away from you, so you don't really have to think about it. But this is a PKG, which means, oh, if you need so you can do pre and post scripts for PKGs. You can't for DMGs, but this is a PKG, so we'll allow you to add pre and post scripts. But if you do, then we can't deploy it as a line of business app, which means we don't get to do uninstall assignments. Again, that's all just Intune limitations. I have this really ugly Excel spreadsheet that shows this like matrix of features for what kind of app and how you deploy it. But we're trying to abstract that away. So that's why that's warnings here. And the reverse is true. If you go do an uninstall deployment later, you can't then go back and edit and add a pre and post script because it's a different kind of deployment. So again, we're trying to abstract that craziness away, but I'm calling out here that means you're going to see things in the UI that says, oh, you can't do this. Or if you do this, that means you can't do this other thing. That's our best way of trying to abstract that away and give you an actual wizard and guided experience. So go ahead and cancel this, Jake.
Yeah, beautiful. I do see there's another question in the chat from Steven around like licensing and things like that, and why it's asking, for the like try it now. The try it now is there because it's a public preview. It's not fully released yet. But Brian, I don't know if you want to go into the licensing ideas around it.
Yeah, no. So the current private preview experience, what if you enable it, what that enables right now is a banner that will show up in the top of the app catalog. And it'll say, hey, there's a Mac OS, do you want to create a trial? Or do you want to get a quote? The reason for that is simply that by nature of deploying to Mac OS devices, you are deploying to devices that aren't currently in your license. So this is available to any license that includes Patch My PC Cloud, which is currently, I think, Enterprise Plus and Enterprise Premium. So if you have any of those licenses, you don't need to go to a higher license. You don't need Premium to do Mac OS apps, but you do need your Mac devices to have a license. And so that's why there's a guided experience to do that. If you are a very small customer and you are subject to our minimum, I forget what the license count is, and this wouldn't bump you over the limit, it's going to be the same price. Is that 1,000? Yeah. So if you have less than 1,000 devices and Mac OS doesn't bump you up, you'll talk to our account executive and they'll light it up for you, and nothing will change. If you are a large company and we have a certain amount of flex in how many devices you add until we go and have to redo a subscription or bump it up, they might give you a pass. But we just need to account for that. Basically, you are implicitly adding new devices to your license count, and we just want to walk you through that. But to get you up and running, you can start a 30-day trial, and then you can talk to an account executive. If you decide you want to keep using it, you can talk to an account executive, get a quote. And again, maybe that quote's zero, just depends on your specific situation.
Have a 10% like built-in like growth year over year. So.
Right. That's the flex thing I was
yeah.
Right. So again, the chance might be, especially if you only have 10, 15, 20 Macs and you want to try this out, it may not change your subscription at all. But if you come to us and you're like, well, I got 1,000 Macs, probably, that's the discussion we have, because, you also don't want to come to your next renewal and find out, oh, wait a minute, why is this so much more expensive? Well, you added 1,000 devices to your thing. But anyways, as promised, I'm crapping all over your demo, Jake.
No. This is how this whole webinar is supposed to go, Brian. But I mean, hey, as far as what else we've got in configurations, I mean, you've got profile name, if you want to add different things, role scope tags, categories, retention policies, how many older versions do you want to keep of the app? Looks like we actually got a red EXO. Oh yeah, because I already have a deployment with 1Password. That's fine for right now. Same thing with like your assignments. You can do update rings here. It looks like, and obviously do your required available uninstall options. It sounds like the way you were alluding to earlier, Brian, really required is probably going to be the best approach here, assuming you want to keep all your devices up to date, since we can't check today on any available apps that are out there. Yeah.
Right. There's no good way of updating availably. There's no good way in Intune for macOS apps to update only update installed applications from an available deployment. I know that's a mouthful, but
For
it's
sure.
a problem. It was a real problem for Windows. We solved it. We cannot do that same solution here. And I would encourage you, if you are, I know that the Intune team is over the last year has been super excited about, hey, we're going to add macOS features, and I realize I'm biased, but like to me, systems management is all about applications. Nobody actually really wants to run an operating system. Nobody really wants to have antivirus. All they really want is applications. That's the only thing that matters in the end to your company is, can we run the apps that print money? And
just give me a thin client and an Azure Virtual Desktop
environment. I say this all the time. If
Yeah.
somebody could just figure out how to beam applications directly to the back of our irises, that person would, be a trillionaire.
We're probably
overnight.
not far off.
Yeah, I mean, like seriously, it's all about the apps. So it kind of sucks that, and again, I could show you this awful. I'm not going to do it, but I have this awful matrix for Mac OS of like, well, is it this kind of app? Did you deploy it this way? Well, that means you get this set of features, and it's just kind of crazy that it's built that way, because it's like, I mean, it's not like we get to choose as administrators. Is it PKG? Is it a DMG? Is it a PKG that wraps a DMG? Is it just a zip file? Like we don't make these choices. It is thrust upon us by vendors.
We deal with them.
Yeah. And it's just kind of annoying that there's still this general opinion on the product teams from Microsoft that, well, it's all just MSIs or this, right? Like, no, it's not. It's awful and terrible. And we need systems that are flexible enough to deploy what is awful and terrible. But anyway, sorry. Again, crapping all over your thing.
No,
go ahead and make an assignment.
We'll hit the next button again.
You didn't make an assignment. It's
not fine. The app's already made.
Oh, like, fair enough.
I'm going to show off an app that we've already got in the portal. Summary page, you've got that. Again, you're going to see like super basic information like display name. I do see connection is listed here, Brian, and it's listed as Intune. So that might be alluding to something in the future, or am I overthinking that?
I have no idea what that
all right.
is.
I gotcha. But again, like you're just your basic. It's just your basic information that you're going to see here, and then we'd obviously hit deploy. That application will go ahead and get created on the Intune side of things. You'll see if I pop over to Intune itself, this is one that we've already created in our environment, for GIMP specifically. But just like on the Windows side of things, you got the nice, name, description, probably the most important things in my opinion, and then obviously the logo. I always harp on the description always being nice, especially if you make these apps available, which again, probably stress doing required instead. But if you've got those users that like reading a little bit more about what the app actually is, anything like that, they've got all that extra information. And then from there, just like any other app, you just deploy it out and you're good to go. It's pretty simple, straightforward.
Yeah, and these will show up in our, we have a app discovery. Discovery, those apps will show there. So if you have macOS apps, do note though, for apps to show up for macOS to give you the data, they need to be corporately owned. So we had a lot of feedback in private preview of, hey, wait a minute, why aren't my Mac apps showing up in Discovery? And that's because they decided those businesses had to roll those devices as personal devices, and Intune simply does not collect inventory on apps that are installed outside of Intune. Again, what we try to show you here is here's a list of all the apps we've detected, whether they're managed by Intune or not. But that data comes from Intune right now and simply does not exist for Mac devices unless they're corporately owned. So just a little caveat there. So, okay. Whew. Thanks.
Just so I'm understanding,
yes?
Brian, are you saying then that the device basically needs to be enrolled via like Apple Business Manager and then thrown into Intune properly, or what does that look like?
What it means is that if you go into Intune and look at the Mac devices and you get a list, it should not say owned by personal.
So it'll be the corporate versus personal option.
Right.
Which if I recall correctly, you can. It's a checkbox. You can change that. I know you can do that on Windows.
Yeah, I'm just not an expert on enrollment.
I'm not going to
Especially
claim
for
to be
Mac
either.
OS.
Yeah, I know
So-
that if you do it through ABM and everything like that,
Yeah,
and the enrollment, it does automatically get filtered as corporate. So
Absolutely. So, okay. Well, with that, we come to an end. Thanks, Jake, for doing the demo and having it crapped all over. We're
absolutely.
going to stay behind for questions. I'll stick around as long as people want. If anyone wants to come off mute, you can go ahead and raise your hand. I'm told that that's possible somehow. But thanks for wasting a perfectly good hour with us. And we will see you again in August. You don't drink coffee at all, Jake?
I'm not a fan. No,
Hmm.
I'm still a child. The face didn't, give that away.